Hey, thanks for joining us today. One of the things that we're going to talk about is what's involved in a front suspension rebuild. Very frequently I get people that bring me their cars and they go, oh, I had my whole front suspension rebuilt. And really the truth is that a lot of the time it's just a partial rebuild, and I'm going to help you create the distinction between a partial front suspension rebuild and the full thing. So here's our subject car, 1990 350 SD. Wonderful example of one of the last Mercedes built that really embodies the spirit of Mercedes-Benz. And we're going to use our right front axle as a demonstration. Now, if you look down here, we have a lower ball joint. We have an upper control arm. We have a shock absorber. Hidden in here, we have a guide rod bushing. We have a guide rod mounting kit. We have a coil spring. Up here we have a coil spring pad, and we have a lower control arm bushing. These are all the parts of your front suspension. They are not part of your steering system, which encompasses the tie rods and the center drag link. Now, when you're having one of these cars replaced, it is critical to start at the top. First of all, you begin with the upper control arm and the two bushings that go in here. Now, in this car, I did not replace them because they were actually in very good shape. The upper control arm has a ball joint right here that can wear out. And it also has a bushing up here that can deteriorate. The W123 and W116 series use a similar design. And so both of these parts can be problematic on them. Second of all, the lower ball joint has a boot on it. The rule of thumb with lower ball joints is that if this boot is split, then the ball joint needs to be replaced. You don't put a new boot on the ball joint, but they do require a special press, and when you get the ball joint, it should be booted and it should go on with the boot intact and not torn. If the boot is torn, it means it was not installed properly. The shock absorber has a life of about 100,000 miles. Correct Mercedes shock absorbers come from Bilstein or Sachs Bogie. Any other brands are not good enough. Now with front springs, replacing the front springs isn't exactly part of a front suspension rebuild. However, in this particular case, our client wanted a car that rode and drove like new, so we replaced them. These front springs are from Mercedes, and that's really the only supplier. This guide rod joint right here is also something you should replace. It has a rubber cup that can crack, and it has metal bushings in the middle. These rubber parts again wear, and it is a similar story with the lower control arm bushing. The lower control arm bushing can develop micro cracks in it that will lead to improper camber, and of course ride and handling will diminish slightly. However, these are very long-lived bushings, and on some cars with 250,000 miles, I've seen them in perfect condition still. Finally, there's the guide rod bushing and the guide rod mount. These two bushings that go back here are a metal cone that hold what's called a subcarrier to the body. These bushings have to be pressed in, and the guide rod bushing, much like the ball joint, has to be driven in and out of a metal housing. Now, I'm going to show you the old parts so you can see what I'm talking about here. This is an old ball joint and an old guide rod bushing. As you can see, the guide rod bushing rusts in its housing, and it also develops a lot of free play. These can also cause a vibration under braking, which is why it is imperative that during any front suspension rebuild, if these have not been replaced, they're replaced with original equipment Mercedes-Benz or Limforder units. Same story for the ball joint. Look how the boot on this ball joint has deteriorated, and also look how easily I can move it. Using just 2 fingers, if you can shake the ball joint back and forth, it's worn out. These are very stiff, and again, they should not have a torn boot. Anyway, that's the story of how to rebuild a Mercedes front suspension on a W126 car. If you'd like to learn more about this process and how it's done, we would be happy to tell you. So send us your questions. Please follow us on our YouTube page. And of course, keep enjoying your Mercedes-Benz. Thank you.